Back in January 2017, I made 2 videos about how every team that made the playoffs that year could win the Super Bowl. And 9 years later, here I am bringing it back. We've got 14 teams that are just a few victories away from being crowned Super Bowl champions. This video is meant to breathe optimism into every team and to illustrate what each team does well and what gives them a chance to make a run. It's not to be some nuanced take on every team because, let's be real, some of these guys winning even one game would be a shocker. Anyways, let's begin with the AFC, the Denver Broncos. Of any team in the AFC, the Broncos have the easiest path to the Super Bowl. They get that bye week for recovery and have home field advantage until the Super Bowl. With their stadium's elevation being a mile high, they arguably have the toughest home field advantage in the NFL. Let's be real, who wants to go play in the cold where it's harder to breathe and you're going against the best defense in football? The Broncos' dominant defense stifled opponents, forcing more 3-and-outs and short drives than most, ranking top 5 in average time drive for opponents. Meanwhile, the pass defense is number 1 in allowed net yards per attempt. And even when you gain an advantage on these guys, their offense has been clutch all year. Bo Nix has 5 fourth quarter comebacks and 7 game-winning drives this season. In addition to that, they are 11-2 in one-score games. They can put up points like we saw versus Green Bay, and they can also win ugly low-scoring games like we saw versus Houston. With the number 1 offensive line in the NFL according to PFF, a Super Bowl winning head coach, possibly the best defense in the NFL, and a clutch quarterback, the Broncos are a strong candidate for a Super Bowl run. The New England Patriots. Vrabel is a proven playoff coach who's won big games, and Josh McDaniels has done well in so many playoff runs as the Pats OC. Sure, he doesn't have Brady, but he does have the MVP frontrunner in Drake May. May's dual threat ability is going to come in clutch in situational football. With May, they are the number 1 team in 4th down conversions and 7th on 3rd down. Meanwhile, their defense is top 5 in scoring as well, and they're 2nd in stopping 4th down conversions and are ranked above average on 3rd down. Here's where these guys truly excel. Number 1, situational football. And number 2, they are disciplined, ranking out as one of the fewest penalized teams in the NFL. And when they limit turnovers, they simply win. They are 11-1 in games where they have the same or fewer number of turnovers as their opponent. And as an added game breaker element, they've got punt returner Marcus Jones, who has 2 returns for touchdowns this season, and Antonio Gibson returned a kick for a touchdown. And those kind of plays become defining moments in these playoff games. Tack on home field advantage for at least 2 games, and the Patriots should be favored in every AFC matchup, at least until they play Denver. And when it comes to Denver, they're one of the most penalized teams in the NFL, so advantage Patriots. And comparing quarterbacks, you gotta go with Drake May. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Talk about one of the big surprises in the NFL. This Jags team might be the hottest team in the league currently, and momentum matters when you enter the playoffs. As I stated in my surprise video, they have been dominant in this late season stretch, crushing teams. There's nobody that this Jags team is going to be afraid of when it comes to the AFC, because unlike the Patriots, they have been tested by a gauntlet of playoff teams this season, playing a top 5 hardest schedule in the NFL. And against playoff teams in the regular season, they are 6-3. And what happens if the Jags gotta go to the brutal mile high? Well, they did that already, and they won by 2 touchdowns. As a unit, they look very well coached as they rank top 10 in scoring on both sides of the ball. Plus, Trevor Lawrence looks like the guy who everyone thought he could be coming out of Clemson. He is playing at his best that he's played in his pro career in the recent weeks. Meanwhile, their defense is top 5 in rushing, forces the 2nd most turnovers, and helps give their offense the best average starting field possession in the entire NFL. And like the Pats, they got a dangerous return man in Parker Washington. Facing the Bills with Josh Allen will be tough, but home field and momentum will be on Jacksonville's side going into that game. And assuming they win that game, they can beat everyone else if they gotta go on the road. They are 6-2 this season on the road, including winning their last 4. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers did it again. They make the playoffs, and almost nobody expects them to even win a single game. There is no denying that they won't be favored in any postseason games they play in, because they haven't really been all that impressive, and statistically, there's nothing that they really do that great. But here's what I will say. They do a good job of winning the turnover battle. They are ranked 4th in turnover differential headed into week 18. They've missed TJ Watt for weeks and he's back. And also DK Metcalf's suspension is over, so they are as close to full power as they can be. And really since December began, besides the Browns game, this team has done well. They beat the Lions and the Ravens twice. Even if these guys resemble the classic Tomlin team that has struggled once the playoffs begin, at least they have Aaron Rodgers. I know it's an older, feebler version of him, but he's the best quarterback that they've had since Big Ben, and that's by a landslide. He's great in hurry up and making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. He is an X factor here that they just haven't had in their last 4 to 5 seasons. The formula is simple. Win the turnover battle, keep it low scoring, and Rodgers make the throws when he has to. They do get a home game versus Houston to start the playoffs, so that'll be a good opportunity for some ugly, old school football. The Houston Texans. To put it simply, the Texans have arguably the best defense in the NFL, right up there with Denver. And as the saying goes, defense wins championships. Defense matters so much in these playoff games because games that are much more intense become situational based, and really it just comes down to one fatal mistake happening, like a blown coverage, or is the defense, you force a turnover and it just changes the landscape of the game. And for Houston, they don't make too many mistakes defensively, and they punish opponents. With 4 Pro Bowlers on that side of the ball, they do so much at an elite level. They're number 1 in points allowed and yards allowed, 3rd in forced turnovers, they allow the fewest number of first downs, and they force the most 3 and outs. Name a defensive category, and they probably do it at an elite or at least above average level. Now, while their offense led by CJ Stroud only ranks out average in terms of scoring, they do complement this defense well because they don't turn the ball over at a high rate. They can play the field possession battle and usually win because their defense is so good. And speaking of hot streaks, they are right up there with Jacksonville. At one point, the Texans were 3-5, and since then, they have won 10 straight, including against the Jags, Bills, Chiefs, and Chargers. These guys, like Jacksonville, have played a lot of playoff teams, and after their bye week, have fared well in those games, going 4-2, losing to Seattle and Denver earlier in that run. They will be on the road throughout this potential run, but that's okay, because they are riding a 4-game road win streak, including against the Chargers and the Chiefs before Mahomes got hurt. CJ Stroud was the hero a few years ago when they weren't expected to be good, but now he doesn't need to be that guy, at least in most of these games, because their formula is simple. Keep it close, play it safe, dominate defensively, and grind out a low-scoring W. And if you need the big play, CJ Stroud is capable of providing that when he's needed. The Buffalo Bills. Good news, Josh Allen's path to the Super Bowl is guaranteed not to run into Mahomes or Burrow. Bad news, this may be the worst Bills team in years. Now, even if that's true, they still have the best quarterback in the playoffs in Josh Allen. Allen has put together some truly heroic playoff runs in the past. Outside of 2021's disastrous postseason, he just doesn't throw playoff interceptions, and he plays his best ball in January. When he's on, we've only seen the Bengals and Chiefs be able to defeat him, and like I said, they're not around this time. Plus, this time around, they're entering the playoffs with one of the best rush offenses in the NFL with James Cook. He's putting up all-pro numbers, and according to PFF, the Bills possess the 5th-ranked offensive line, which is only 2nd in the AFC to Denver. If their run game gets going and Allen doesn't turn the ball over, that spells major trouble for opponents. Now, defensively, it has been a rough year, but recently with their performance versus the Eagles, it was a promising showcase as they allow just 190 yards and 13 points. As long as their defense can keep it close, you feel like January Josh Allen can pull out some magic when needed. Plus, considering the playoff experience, Buffalo outshines everybody in the AFC. They've been in the bright lights in those pressure-packed moments. So even if they're underdogs going into any of these games, if it's a tight game in the fourth quarter, you gotta give the advantage to Buffalo, even if they're playing on the road in a place like Denver. Basically, the game plan is to keep the game close and let Josh Allen do what he does best in January. And last for the AFC, the LA Chargers. Statistically, the Chargers don't jump off the screen. They're pretty average looking, not really excelling anywhere. But to put it simply, when you've got a great coach and a great quarterback, you've got a chance. It's the two things that half the league wishes they had at least one of. Along with that combo, they've had a top 10 defense that's been great in situational football. They have one of the best third down defenses and red zone defenses in the game. We have seen the Chargers in numerous heavyweight fights. They've held things down much tighter after that bye week. Going into New England, This Chargers team, like I said, has been much more battle-tested. And considering it'll be Drake May's first ever playoff game, you just don't know what you're going to get with him. And this may be an advantage for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. They will be on the road in every game during this playoffs, but they have fared well, going 5-2 in this season before week 18. Also, what happens in a ton of these big games? It often comes down to field goals, and the Chargers have Cameron Dicker, who's representing the AFC in the Pro Bowl after an outstanding season. Moving over to the NFC, we have the number 1 seed, the Seattle Seahawks. With one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL, Seattle is consistently ranked one of the toughest places to play by NFL players. Combine that with the most dominant team in the NFL, and you have the recipe for a serious contender. Seattle ranks number 1 in point differential, and their defense is incredible, ranking by far the best in the NFC in terms of points allowed. They're number 1 in yards allowed, and they're also number 1 in third down defense. Offensively, they rank second in scoring behind an explosive pass attack, which ranks number 1 in net yards per attempt. The connection between Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba will prove to be crucial. Like we saw years ago with Stafford and Kupp and the run that they put together on the Rams, having that good of a connection really does matter. Seattle also has the top punt returner in the conference, with Rashid Shaheed being named to the Pro Bowl after returning multiple kicks for touchdowns. And with the bye, they have home field advantage until the Super Bowl. Seattle will most likely be favored in every game they play. Although Darnold has struggled with turnovers recently, he has been clutch with 4 game-winning drives, where he was playing poorly versus the Rams, but then he showed up when he needed to in the fourth quarter and overtime. And against the 49ers in Week 18, in the battle for the number 1 seed, he was efficient. This team can bully others with their top-notch defense, create big plays with their offense, grind things out with the run game when needed, and overall, the home field advantage that they have into the Super Bowl will be a huge factor. This team has been in some tough battles in recent weeks, and they've come out victorious. The Chicago Bears. The playoffs are a time of chaos, and the Bears are a team ready for chaotic endings. Caleb Williams leads the league in fourth quarter comebacks with 6. Plus, the run game is elite, ranking top 3 in yards, attempts, and yards per carry. The Ben Johnson effect cannot be overstated. His run game, combined with one of the best O-lines in the league, should have every Bears fan excited. Now, the defense isn't great, but they do a few things well, and one of those things is they are ranked number 1 in turnover differential with a plus 22 advantage. That is massive because turnovers play a huge role in these playoff games. Like we saw earlier in the season, these guys can score and go back and forth with anybody. Plus, they have played well against some tough teams late in the season, so they're not a fluke. Caleb Williams has been playing some of his best ball recently, and with him at quarterback and the way he's slinging it, when he's on, they can beat anybody. And the formula here is pretty simple. Win the turnover battle, pound the rock, let Caleb cook when he has to, and really just don't make any silly mistakes. Plus, the home field advantage they'll have for at least 2 games will be amazing. The Philadelphia Eagles. Despite struggling offensively this season, the Eagles have the greatest championship pedigree in the NFL currently. They are the defending champs after all, and they've played in 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 years. Regardless of what the stats say, they've shown up in big games and big moments over the years. This defense has been top-notch ever since their bye week. They held the Lions and the Packers to less than 10 apiece. They shut out the Raiders, and they held the Bills to 12 points. With 4 Pro Bowlers on that side of the ball, this is a unit ready to make a big play happen at any moment. And they just got back Jalen Carter after missing a month, which will be huge as he's the guy who sealed their victory over the Rams last postseason. Now, the offense has been concerning, but they don't turn the ball over, and they're ranked number 1 in red zone offense in the NFL. So when they get their opportunities, they capitalize. Saquon hasn't had a great season, but he's the type of back that can pop at any moment. And Jalen Hurts is a short yardage beast. The tush push has seen a decrease in effectiveness lately, but I do think they will be able to get it back to form in these playoff games. I would feel good as an Eagles fan knowing that your defense is stacked and your key players have shown up in these big games when it matters most. The Carolina Panthers. Okay, let's be honest here. Nobody thinks these guys are going to go very far in the playoffs. They have a losing record, and they've lost 3 of their last 4. We're going to throw out stats with these guys because honestly, it doesn't matter. When you're this big of an underdog, there's usually only one way you can win. You gotta play like you got nothing to lose. You gotta be super aggressive, force turnovers, throw out some trick plays, just throw the whole kitchen sink at them. The only advantage that these guys have is they do start with a home game, and they get to play the Rams, who they did beat a few weeks ago, so that's something. And everyone they play will be huge favorites, so again, they got nothing to lose, so you gotta play like it. Just throw the kitchen sink at them. That's the best strategy these guys got. The LA Rams. With the #1 offense in the league, this is the team that I had the most confidence in to make a run a few weeks ago. However, the last few weeks have been more concerning. Despite a few losses, I still think the season Stafford and this offense put together was spectacular. Stafford, despite a really bad game versus Atlanta, still has a legendary touchdown to interception ratio. Plus, with Devontae Adams coming back, this offense is absolutely dominant. Now, their secondary has been a problem, but at least they've been good situationally, ranking top 10 in third down defense and red zone defense. Even though they lost to the Panthers earlier, they're going to be huge favorites in this game, and for good reason. Assuming they just play average, they should roll these guys. You got to feel good as a Rams fan knowing that you got one of the best coaching staffs, probably the best coaching staff in the NFL, and a veteran presence. Seattle's current team hasn't really been in this position, whereas the Rams have. So they may be underdogs if they have to go on the road and play those guys, but that championship pedigree should give them an advantage. Plus, this team can win in any type of game, so if it turns to a shootout once again like their last matchup, I trust in the Rams. Now, if they play the Eagles after round 1, you got to give the coaching and quarterback advantage to the Rams. And like I said, comparing it to last year's matchup, I think this Rams team is better and this Eagles team is worse. The San Francisco 49ers. There's no denying the obvious. Injuries have been a huge issue. But despite the injuries and losing in week 18, this Niners coaching staff is elite, and they have had a red-hot offense before week 18. They've been #1 in third down offense, #2 in red zone offense, and they have one of the best O-lines in the NFL. Purdy didn't really do much in week 18, but prior to that, he was looking like an MVP level player since he came back. And honestly, the only way I feel like these guys can win is if they get into shootouts. Also, here's another theme that we've seen in this video. The 49ers are an awesome road team, as they went 7-2 on the road, including wins versus Seattle and the Rams. Basically, they need this offense to keep on humming the way it was, and just win a bunch of shootouts, because their defense is just not good enough to stop people. Again, the formula is simple. The offense needs to keep doing what they're doing, and you gotta pray that the defense can get a few stops when it matters. And also under Kyle Shanahan, they've been really good in the playoffs, so against the teams like the Bears and the Seahawks who don't have as much playoff experience with their current teams, this could be an advantage. And last, the Green Bay Packers. Let's be honest, these guys are in a tough position after losing Micah Parsons among other injured players like Tucker Kraft earlier in the season. They had a rough December after losing every game in that month after beating the Bears at home. The run game is weak. The defense can't stop anybody. They're definitely not a popular pick to make a run. With that said, the good news is that Jordan Love will be ready to go, and when he's out there, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. This offense has been good on third down and doesn't turn the ball over too much. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat the defense. They have not been playing well recently, especially after Micah Parsons went down. In order to pull off an improbable run, they're going to have to win the turnover battle and probably get a couple lucky breaks, and probably win in shootouts, because I don't think that this defense can slow anyone down in the NFC. At least they're familiar with their round 1 opponent. So if they can embrace that underdog mentality, that'll give them their best shot. Historically, they've done well as the underdog under LaFleur. So there you go. 14 teams in the most wide open playoff race that we've seen in recent years. Some may have a better chance than others, but ultimately, the beauty of the NFL playoffs is that anything can happen.
Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiffer got free to the 30, to the 20. Thomas to the 10.